18 years old, you get the email from Sean Shelby, hey, we want you on the Dynamite Contender Series. Talk to me about that experience you doing Dynamite Contender Series.
I think they said it was like one of the first times in Contender Series where it was a 10-8 for one guy and then a 10-8 the other way afterwards.
Oh, wow. So he really did blow his load.
Oh, for sure. Hey, pause. I'm doing all the things I can right now. I'm sleeping in an altitude tent. It's like a little box that's over my head.
You be having sex in this tent?
I haven't tried that yet.
You haven't?
Not with the tent on. You know, we usually leave the doors open for that.
Big fight coming up. Talk to me about, this matchup between you and Jim Miller.
He's gonna try and get a finish, and so am I. I want a guy that's gonna try to submit me. I want a guy that's gonna try and knock me out. I don't want to get knocked out or sub, But
oh, it's 15-time world champion Demetrious Johnson. You're listening to the MIGHTYCAST.
What's going on, guys? This episode on the MIGHTYCAST is sponsored by PrizePicks. Now, PrizePicks is a daily fantasy sports game where you can play directly from your phone. It's very simple. All you gotta do is go to your app store, download PrizePicks. And when you do that, make sure you use my promo code MIGHTYCAST. Cool promotion going on right now. All you gotta do is play $5, make your lineup in mixed martial arts, NHL, sadly NFL is gone right now, but it'll be back soon. CSGO, Valorant, you name it, we got it, or they got it. And no matter what happens in that lineup, you're gonna win $50. And UFC 314 is right around the corner, and we're gonna be doing our live instant reaction and also our final predictions and let you guys know what we think is gonna be the best picks for you guys to make at the right place, which is PrizePicks. Shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring the episode on the MIGHTYCAST. Now, let us get back to our guest, which is Chase Hooper. My man, Chase Hooper, local legend.
oh, I'll take it.
Thanks for coming, man. I appreciate you stopping by with the MIGHTYCAST. How's everything going, man?
Good. Yeah, just in the midst of fight camp, just trying to get the weight down and get the instincts back up, just sharpen up, get ready for April, and yeah, having a good time.
Yeah. So this is one thing I always find fascinating is like in Puyallup, where we live, Puyallup, Washington State, I feel that the area, Pacific Northwest, there's not a real big mixed martial arts scene, right? Like at the very beginning for me, I trained at Vision Quest at Auburn, and then eventually it was a satellite gym, and that's where I met Jeff Hoagland, your coach. And he almost broke my arm one time. We were sparring. He goes, "You're not gonna break me." And I was like, "Oh, Joy, I didn't want to break you, but I'm just trying to get some rounds in." But there wasn't really a big scene. How did you get linked up with Jeff Hoagland? Because like I said, for me, I didn't even know who Matt Hume was until I did one of the amateur fights. I knew he was the owner of AMC, but my first coach was Steve Skids, Luke Pittman. How did you find your home with Jeff?
Yeah, so honestly, I got really, really lucky, really fortunate. My dad actually ended up working with Jeff when he moved up here from California, and it was during all the 2008 stuff. They both got laid off at the same time, and instead of getting back into a regular job, Jeff was like, had already kind of started, trying to make a gym. And he's like, all right, I'm just going to launch it. And, that was his sign. And then I got brought in with my sister to jiu-jitsu. And I was about 8 years old. And honestly, yeah, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was really my only sport that I'd ever done. And I didn't really know what UFC was at the time. I honestly, like in my head, when I pictured it, I thought it was going to be like karate and stuff. Like when we were going in there, I didn't know what jiu-jitsu was. I don't think most people did at the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was 2008. I was 8 or 9 years old, and the gym was right down the road, right in Enumclaw. Got super lucky with that, and it was walking distance. So some Saturdays, like in high school and stuff, I'd like walk to the gym in the morning and all that. So it was, I was really fortunate for the location, and then I got to watch his UFC career. All in little old Enumclaw.
And that's the only sport you ever did. You never did basketball, football, baseball, none of that. So you jumped in right at 8 years old, right into jiu-jitsu or to mixed martial arts?
Right to jiu-jitsu, and then the striking stuff came a little bit later. I played a couple sports in middle school, and I was like, meh, not really my thing. Hopping right into the jiu-jitsu full time, and then MMA more when I was closer to like 14, 15. Mm-hmm. And the rest is history.
Damn. And then when did you take your first amateur fight?
My first amateur fight, I think I was around 16. I had to keep doing them on like the casino shows. It was such a weird dynamic because it was like I couldn't get licensed in the state because I wasn't 18.
Yep.
And then at the casinos, they were like escorting me around because they're like, you can go from the back to the cage and then you got to go immediately back. Because obviously I was underage and they knew it. So they're like, all right, you know, we need you just there and back and then you got to leave.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had 6 amateur fights. And then right when I turned 18, hopped into the pro circuit. And yeah.
So just to give you guys context about how it works in Washington State, back in my day, when I was a lot younger, there was no, I guess you say, athletic commission, essentially, that was overseeing all the fights. And then as time went on, they made a mandate, I don't know, I guess you say a mandate, that at 16 years old, that if you were going to fight mixed martial arts, you would have to have, especially nobody would license you because it just wasn't, the age wasn't right. But on the casino, when it's owned by the Indians, they can run their own show. And so, but in a casino, you have to be 21 and over in order to be there. So they're like, hey, we're gonna escort him back and forth between the cage and the back of the room so then he can catch his ass gambling.
Yeah. Or drinking or whatever, you know, it's on them if it's, you know, if that happens. But yeah, I was just there to fight. So
now you said your sister was in the gym too. Does she compete or does she still train now or no?
No, she I think she moved out at 17. She enlisted, she went to the Marines, and then she got stationed in Hawaii and stuff, got married, has kids. Now she's somewhere on the east side of the state. Just living the mom life, you know. And yeah, I can't blame her for it, you know, just live some sort of stable life, and I can't complain.
Okay. Now you started doing you did the amateur, and then you started doing the pro circuit around here. You fought at Emerald Creek Casino. I think you fought a couple of my opponents. You fought Drew Bookershire, didn't you?
I did. That Drew fight was actually, I took it on 2 hours notice, and that's
oh shit, 2 hours notice?
Yeah, I'd fought I think like a week before, literally, and you know, went through the guy, first round finish, whatever, and then we'd actually trained the Saturday of the fight. And then I was, you know, at home, whatever. I just fought. I was just kind of hanging out, whatever. But still training like normal. I didn't have anything else to do.
Yep.
And then Jeff called me and he's like, hey, you don't have to take this fight, but I wouldn't have called you if I didn't think you could win. He's like, is Drew, I think he was like 13-4 or something at the time, like pretty good record.
Yeah.
And I was, you know, 2-0, 3-0 at the time. And he's like, main event. It's going to be 5-5s. I think they offered to pay me $2,500 flat. And at the time, I was actually supporting myself, paying all the bills at the time. So I was like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
$2,500. So I was like, I'll do it.
On 2 hours notice?
Yeah. And we went 5-5s. We went the whole distance. It's pretty much like, I mean, you would know 5-5s. It's like Groundhog Day for me, at least. It was like, oh, we're back in the corner again.
Yep.
Oh, we're back out. Like, it just felt like it was so repetitive. And then, yeah, got the win, and it was probably like a week later, I got an email from Sean Shelby, and he was like, hey, no guarantees, but would you want to be on the Contender series? And I was like, yeah, 100%. I'll take whatever you can give me.
Damn. So you took that fight on 2 hours notice?
Yeah.
What were you doing when he called you? Were you playing Halo?
Probably. I mean, I was just kind of hanging out. I just trained in the morning, and then I was at home. I think my girlfriend, my wife now, we were going to go to like IKEA and pick out some furniture because we were moving in together. And then I was like, hey, I can't go to IKEA. But, you know, the plus side, they're going to give me $2,500. We'll be able to ball out at IKEA afterwards.
Yeah.
And yeah, hey, it worked out.
That's fucking dope. I didn't know that because I mean, I trained with Drew Brokenshire from the very beginning of my career. And now we train together now at Grapple Club.
Yeah.
But I didn't know you took that fight on 2 hours notice. And that's what got you the opportunity to get into the Dana White Contender Series. And Sean Shelby reached out to you via email, or was it your manager who did that?
No, it's through my email. It was like,
how the fuck he get your email?
A little bit before I got hit up by some weirdo on Facebook Messenger or whatever. And it was like, hey, I'm a talent scout for UFC. Like, this doesn't mean anything. Yeah. But if you just give us your email, give us your contact information. And I was like, okay, probably a scam, whatever. But I guess not, you know, hey. If it was a very, very happy coincidence.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, they got ways.
And that's how. So it dropped in your email. You got the opportunity to go to Dana White Contender Series. Talk to me about that. Going from, because a lot of people don't get the opportunity to go from. There's so many fighters around here, as you know, in a local scene. They fight amateur. They may go 6-0, 10-0, whatever it may be. They get to the Emerald Creek Casino, the local circuit, the pro circuit, and then they don't do very well there. They do well, but nothing ever matures of that. Nothing ever comes out of that. So what was that like for you once you got that email from Sean Shelby? You're like, oh, well, I guess that scam was a good scam.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. They already had another fight scheduled, and I was like, hey, do you want me to cancel the fight? Like, hoping that they'd be like, yeah, okay, just come on a Contender Series in June. But he was like, nope, do the fight. And they were like, we'll move you back to July. I was like, fuck. I was hoping, the amount of pressure going into that fight had like tripled.
Yeah.
I was fighting another, 4-0 kid at the time. I think I was, 3-0, whatever. And I was like, damn, if I lose this fight, there's no way they're going to give me a Contender. Like, the other kid's probably going to get it.
Yeah.
But won that fight. And then, yeah, I know it was a huge step up. I mean, it was cool because at the time, that second season, it was filmed in like the Ultimate Fighter, the tough gym.
Yep.
So it was cool to see like, the door that Rampage, ripped down, or, the replacement door in that area. But just all the history and all that. It was a huge step up. I think, I don't know. I try to think that the pressure didn't get to me, but I'm sure it did a little bit. Yeah, fighting another, young, hungry kid that also wants it just as bad. I mean, it's a hell of an opportunity. It's the world's, scariest job interview.
Yeah. Well, the fact that at that time, you were 20 years old, 19? How old were you?
I was 18 on the Contender.
18.
Yeah. I was 18. A pro for 6 months when they offered me Contender because of the Drew fight.
Yeah. But think about that. 18 years old. You made $2,500. You go to IKEA, you're balling out.
Yeah.
Right? And then you get the call, you get the email from Sean Shelby, hey, we want you to, Dana White Contender Series. Do I need to cancel this fight or not? Nah, go ahead. Everybody's like, fuck, I better win this fight now. And then you get there at 18 years old. I think anybody who's 18 would have a lot of stress and be nervous. Because I didn't get there until I was like 23 years old, right? So I was a little more mature, like almost what your age is now. But, I mean, you look at that. So you get there. Walk me through that Dana White Contender Series, like that experience, because now back in my day, it was you just got into the UFC. There was an Ultimate Fighter, but not for smaller guys. But for you now, you see Dana White Contender Series, it produces champions.
Yeah.
Right. So talk to me about that experience you doing Dana White Contender Series.
Yeah, I remember actually the first season. It was after O'Malley's fight, and my coach was like, "That's your way in. We're not bothering getting you on tough." I wasn't sure if you had to be 21 or whatever at the time for the Ultimate Fighter. It might have been because of all the alcohol in the house, whatever. He was like, "Contender Series is your way." That was well before, like right when I was starting out pro, and then yeah, we got it. And honestly, the thing that I remember the most was having to do the P test in the back for Contender. Like, I'd never had to do a drug test or anything like that before. I was very P shy, and
some guy was like, I'm gonna look at your
yeah,
penis.
I was like, 18-year-old kid. I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
But, that was pretty stressful. I was chugging water, and then I ended up being like, because I was the very first fight of the night, and I was probably one of the last guys to be able to pee in that cup finally. Like, I just had to wait until I had to pee bad enough that I was able to overcome that. And then I literally, between rounds of pads, like I'd be like hitting pads for 2 to 3 minutes, and like, okay, I got to run to the bathroom again.
Yeah.
That was my whole warm up for the fight. And then
when we went to the bathroom, were you pooping, shitting, or shitting, or were you
just peeing? I was just so full of water.
Oh, okay,
I
gotcha.
chugged so much trying to make that happen, and then and at that time too, there was like a couple tickets. I think they gave me like 4 tickets. I guess kind of like they do now.
Yeah.
But so what? There's 5 people on the show, and then so there's like 20 people watching.
Yep.
And then it was a very intimate feeling, I guess. No walkout music for that either.
Yeah.
Just like tough, like all you hear is the door opening when you're going through. And I'd actually kind of a weird connection. My wife's like her dad was good friends growing up with Jens Pulver.
Yep.
And I'd met him like right before Contender Series, and he told me, he was like, "Hey, just so you know, Hawaiians, tough first round. He's gonna try to knock your head off." But then after that, you know, they all gas. And I was like, okay, you know, mental note.
Yep.
And fought a Hawaiian. He kicked the shit out of me in the first round, honestly.
Yeah.
And then he gassed. He was another young kid. He'd never been past the first round. He'd finish everybody. So that was kind of our thing, knowing going into the fight is like, okay, you just got to get him to the second.
Yep.
You know, I wasn't trying to get too beat up, like ended up happening, but won the first two, or lost the first round, won the first two unanimously. I think they said it was like one of the first times in Contender Series where it was a 10-8 for one guy and then a 10-8 the other way afterwards.
Oh, wow. So he really did blow his fucking load.
Oh, for sure. Hey, pause, you know, if that's what you're into. And then I was so disappointed, though, because I'd finished all my opponents. Besides Drew, we went to the decision. Other than that, it'd been all finishes, even through my amateur career. I was really disappointed after the fight. I was like, fuck, you know, I wanted to get a finish. I wanted to get signed. But as I was getting stitched up, I had a pretty good cut. They had me laid down on the table with the doc or whatever. And then Dana came in and was like, hey, hell of a fight, kid. And the lady that was stitching me up, she was like, okay, that's probably a good sign because he's never done that before. And yeah, I mean, again, I was disappointed. I was like, whatever. And then, you know, thankfully, instead of offering me a contract, they gave me the developmental deal. And that.
What's that?
So honestly, there's only a handful of people that have ever gotten it. Me, Mackenzie Dern, I want to say Greg Hardy got it back in the day. A couple other people, they stopped doing it. Essentially, it was really like a good step up from fighting locally. They were like, okay, you're going to fight on the Fight Pass shows, but you still get to kind of pick the fights for the most part, and you get paid UFC money. That was the biggest thing.
Oh, hang on. One second. I'm gonna make sure that mic. I want to make sure that mic is good. And here's here to say it. So there was a development program that the UFC was running at this time when you were in Dana White's Contender Series, right? I've had Brandon Moreno on before, and he talked about it. They had something like that in Mexico, like to develop the talent in Mexico.
Yeah.
So you got the opportunity to go into a development program, and you would pick your fights on a UFC Fight Pass. So I'm assuming that's like, what were those organizations?
I fought CFFC. I fought for Island Fights at the time, and the third one was Titan.
Okay.
So all like decent shows.
Decent shows, yeah.
You know?
Decent, that local, that sub tier before they go into the bigger leagues.
Exactly.
And you were getting UFC money.
Yeah.
What's UFC money like? What was it, 10 and 10?
At the time, it was 10 and 10.
Fuck! You know how good that is?
It was amazing.
Because I know guys who are the champion at CFFC and they ain't making no goddamn 10 and 10.
No, essentially what they told, what I heard is they told the promoters, they're like, hey, pay him whatever you're going to pay.
Yep.
We cover the rest. So it's not like the promoters were having to shell out 20 G's. Like that's probably their whole budget for paying people.
Yeah.
But I went from, you know, making $2,500 at the local casino for 2 hours notice for a title fight against a tough ass dude to making 5 and 5 for Contender. And then a couple months later making 10 and 10 fighting, you know, local guys on Fight Pass. And no, it was a hell of an opportunity. We picked the first 2 fights. And then the third one, Sean Shelby was like, hey, I want him to fight this kid. And he actually, I was scared when I looked up his tapology. He had finished Sadiq Youssef. I think he like judo threw him and either blew out his shoulder or like gave him a concussion, like threw him on his head. He had a good win over Sadiq, and Sadiq was actually on my episode of Contender. And I watched his, you know, hard ass fight with Mike Davis. Like Sadiq won the fight and he was on crutches. So I was like, this is gonna be a tough ass fight. But luckily the Cuban kid that I fought in Miami, which, hey, we'll be back there soon. But yeah, I was super scared. He's like a judo guy. He's a boxer. And we got to the venue and we saw him practicing like double legs. And my coach was like, yes. Like he's like, that's the best case scenario. He wants to take you down for sure. And I think I want to say he was like 7 and 3. All 3 of his losses though were rear naked choke. So we're like, perfect. Great matchup. I think I tried to like push kick him in the face, like the old Anderson Silva, you know, front kick. And he caught it, took me down. He kept engaging in the grappling. I don't know why. I don't know why throughout my career, like all these people that should just like push away and stand up, they keep trying to grapple. And then it gives me enough to, you know, snake around to the back, get the rear naked choke. And then I think we were in the Uber going back to the hotel after that. And then Sean Shelby called. He's like, hey, like you're in, you know.
That's awesome.
You know, I don't know if they booked me for December right away, but it was pretty soon after that. They're like, all right, you're going to be fighting this guy, UFC 245, super stacked card. It was Max Volkanovski won, Colby Usman won, and let's see, Mike Perry, Jeff Neal. There's so many great fights on that card. Yeah, I mean, that was the whole deal.
That's amazing, man. It's kind of amazing because obviously we grew up in the same area, right? And obviously our times were a little bit different. I think as you got into the UFC, I was almost on my way out because you got in what, 2019? 19. So I was already gone by then. But I knew about you in this area because you fought Drew, and I was with Drew a little bit here and there, and then I took off, and I remember you got into the UFC and you're very, very young. Yeah. Very young. But at the same time, you were very well mature, right? You think about it, like how many people get the opportunity to do a development program where they're getting good fucking money to fight. So you fight, what, you say you fought 3 times before you got into the UFC?
Yeah.
So you made 10-10s, that's 20. Do you have an escalator or was it always just 10-10?
Yeah, no, so honestly, they were trying to figure out a separate contract for the developmental stuff, and they're like, honestly, it's too much work trying to figure that out. We'll just give you a regular UFC contract, call it good.
Gotcha.
So yeah, 10-10. I debuted in the UFC making 20-20.
Yeah,
like that's
So and you're what? And then in those 3 fights, so you're probably what, maybe 21 when you got in the UFC? 20 or?
I was 20 when I made my debut.
20 debut. So
yeah,
that's fucking crazy.
Oh, for sure. And it's I mean, it's just taking the opportunities that you're given, and then I mean, it's, I don't know, just a series of, lucky, coincidences, whatever, getting me to where I am. And
And I also think that's dope is, that you're still with the same coach today. Like you and Jeff Hoagland are tight like this. I didn't know how tight you guys were until like I started doing some like Instagram stalking. I was like, damn, these motherfuckers are tight. Like you've been with him since the very beginning.
For sure.
What was that feeling like when you guys, because I remember the feeling was when me and Matt got that contract. What was it feeling like for you guys to get that contract coming from an area where we're not known for producing the best fighters? We're just not, right? It's like me, Josh Barnett. And then, you have Benson Henderson, you have Jens Pulver, but those guys left. Yeah. Those guys all left their hometown where they started, where you're still here grinding and eating call with Jeff Hoagland.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that we were doing the right thing. Like when he was in UFC, he had a shorter career, but he was like, okay, I did it. I know how to get people here. Like we have a good program. You just need people to follow the steps. And, honestly, yeah, I mean, just it's very vindicating, especially, you see guys go to the gym that's, the flavor of the month. They're like, oh, I'm going to go to this gym because they have a big social media. It's like, well, that coach sucks. And now you're on a 3-fight skid because you went to the wrong place. Like you should have just stayed, Loyalty has been a huge thing for me my entire career. I wouldn't want to, stay here like being in a different gym, it just wouldn't, it doesn't make sense. I feel like a lot of these super gyms are good because they're just filtering the good people from all these other gyms. Like that's just how it goes. Like you just have a real broad talent pool and then you're able to pick through who you want. Yeah. Which is way different than like building somebody up from day one. Oh. I feel like that's much more rewarding than just like, oh, this guy's already 10-0. Yeah, come over here. Yeah, we'll get you in UFC.
1,000%. I mean, like I said, you started from day one with Jeff Hoagland. Yeah. And for you guys to go through that journey together, taking the fight on 2 hours notice, going to IKEA, balling out with $2,500, and then getting in that development program under the UFC. Now, here's a question: do you think they should still have this development program?
I think I can see why they didn't do it. They probably ended up losing a little bit of money as far as that goes.
How can you say that though? Because look what they've done with you though, right?
For sure.
Let's say 3 years from now you become a massive pay-per-view star. Yeah. And then you're like selling out arenas, and I was like, we made our fucking money back. We spent a little more money in the front end to get him.
For sure.
But look what he turned out to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that's already kind of coming into fruition as far as that goes. But it's one of those things. I mean, how much easier is it for them to just do Contender series now and like, oh, okay, you did okay, but yeah, come back. You're going to fight another fight later in the season. Like that's what they did with Bo Nickal, where if Bo had jumped in UFC a little sooner, then he might have had the developmental deal.
Exactly. But when you look at that development deal gave you the opportunity to fight a little bit more better talent. Where you look at Bo Nickal's last fight when he fought, I believe it was Andrew Craig.
Paul Craig.
Paul Craig.
Same.
I can't get the fucking name wrong, man. I was doing one thing there. I was like, no, it's Paul Craig. Paul Craig, if he would have had a more development prior to that fight and had to deal with the guy who does a lot of stand-up or excuse me, who's very dangerous on the ground, maybe he would have been a lot better. Now he's got all this backlash, like, oh, he's not the real deal. He can't. So, I don't know. I feel, yeah, I always wanted to ask that because when you said that, I never heard of that development deal. And I think it played out very well for you because look what you were able to do. And then you got into UFC. And I feel like you're pretty well-rounded, you know, as you're still developing in your skill set.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming in hot to UFC and like the biggest issue for Bo Nickal is he's winning all the fights.
Yeah.
So he's just getting this gradual steps up where it's going to be harder to, you know, keep having these highlight finishes where you're going to get a situation like the Paul Craig fight where people are like, well, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I've been fighting for like 2 years. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Where, you know, I had some more ups and downs in my first, you know, couple fights in my career. And so have some of the other greats in the sport, like a Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira. Like Oliveira, I think went 5-5 in his first 10 UFC fights.
Yep.
I went 3-3 in my first 6.
Yep.
So did Max Holloway.
Yep.
Again, I'm not saying I'm either of those guys.
No. But it's a recurring thing that happens to the best athletes in the world of mixed martial arts.
It's just an adjustment period, and it allows you, I think, to get a little more acquainted. Like you go from, again, like the local circuit, even if it's Fight Pass.
Yep.
Then you drop to the UFC, like where the talent pool is infinitely deep. Like I'm in the same division as, you know, Islam. Like what? We're you know, fighting for the same goal, I guess, at this point. So it's kind of a weird transition period. And then, you know, it's getting past that imposter syndrome, being like, okay, I deserve this. I belong here.
Yep.
You know, I can beat these guys. You know, I deserve to be, you know, in this spot. I'm one of the best in the world. And yeah, I think you just need the UFC experience to prove that, or high level experience anywhere, really.
Yeah. Want to give you a huge shout out to Wicked Pie Pizza for hosting this episode of the MightyCast. If you guys are local in the Puyallup area, make sure you guys come down to Wicked Pie, which is located at 112 South Meridian, Puyallup, Washington, 98371. Get some fresh, homegrown pizza right here at Wicked Pie. And it is 21 and up, so make sure you guys leave your children at home. If you guys are looking for a great date night, get some good pizza. Me and the wife like to come here, and I like to get a Caesar salad. It's absolutely delicious. The wife loves to get her pizza, and you guys already know, your boy is a man who eats pineapple on his pizza. Well, when I did eat pizza. So come on down here. All their pizza are made from scratch. Don't forget, check out Wicked Pie in Puyallup, Washington. So let's get away from the UFC a little bit. Gaming. How's gaming treating you right now? For me, it's just the game industry is dead. Okay, there's just no good games out right now.
Fair enough.
Right? Like, what are you playing nowadays?
Honestly, it's been really hard the last 9 months with the baby. It used to be way easier. Like, you know, the wife would go to work on the weekends, and I'd spend all Saturday and Sunday gaming. I was big into Tarkov for a while. I need to get another controller again so I can play the Elden Ring DLC. I have not done that yet. Playing some Arma. I don't know. It's just...
Let me ask you a question.
All right.
How many hours you got in Elden Ring?
I'd have to look. I went through the main story once, so however long that takes, 40, 60, 80 hours, something like that.
So do you know what the fuck's going on in that game? Do you truly, without you looking up on YouTube or reading anything, do you know what the fuck is going on in that game?
So I feel like that's part of the appeal, is you're like, you know, imagine the character in the game. He doesn't know what's going on. If you're living through the perspective.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like the Japanese. They got the wacky, you know, like storylines.
Yeah.
But, hey, the gameplay is good. You just got to grind through that.
So you don't have a problem playing the fucking game and having no idea what the fucking premise of the story is?
You know, the first Dark Souls, I heard somebody, like, describe it. So, like, essentially there's, like, these little mobs that are like zombies. Mm-hmm. They're called, like, hollows or whatever.
Yep.
And the way that I heard it described is, like, essentially the hollows are all the players that, like, had the opportunity to finish the game and they stopped at whatever point.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's interesting with a game like that, like, you know, whether that's true or not, but it's like, it's the people that have given up. So it's like, you can keep playing as long as you don't give up. Mm-hmm. And then if you give up, you turn into one of the NPCs or whatever. So I just thought that was kind of a cool thing to latch onto, but I don't know. It's all about the accomplishment of it, and like it's the the grind. I mean, it's the same as this. You know, you do something hard. I mean, maybe not the same, but you know, it's like a little fraction of that. It's like you go in there knowing you're gonna get fucked up the first couple times, and then you come back, and then you know, it's a big sense of accomplishment. And,
for me, it was always hard. Like I'll sit there and play Elden Ring, and I'm like, okay, it's a dope game. Beat it twice, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And I'm like, what? And I sat down, I was like, what the fuck is going on right now? I was like, who am I fighting? Who's Melina? Who's all this shit? And everybody's like, oh, we gotta go read the backstory. And I was like, what's the fucking point of me playing a game for 85 hours? It's like when I play Onimusha 1, 2, 3, Devil May Cry 1, 2, 3, I know the premise of what the story is, and I have like maybe 60 hours in those games, so I'm understanding what's going on. But when I play Elden Ring, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like I just had to remove myself from the game. So I was like, if I'm gonna put 90 hours in a game, I need to have like, you know, when I you play Elden Ring, you play Elden Ring, but have you played Ocarina of Time, Zelda?
A little bit.
A little bit of it, right? But you knew what was going on. You knew, okay, the Deku Tree's dying. There's a fucking 3 spiritual stones. You knew you're immersed in the world. There, I was like, this is a fucking boss simulator. You're just killing bosses left and right. You kill a boss, souls. It's like, you killed me. Take this key and go to the... None of that. And I had to call it quits.
All right. Hey, maybe it's like life a little bit, where it's like you don't really know what's going on. You just go from thing to thing, and then you got to kind of piece it together as you go.
Oh my god. What about Tarkov? I know you're pretty fucking good at Tarkov. Why don't you play that anymore?
I mean, again, you got to really sink a lot of time into it. It's hard with the baby. Yeah, no, I had a good time. It's one of those things. There's definitely a lot more cheaters on the thing. Yeah. And I don't think that's just me coping for dying all the time. But, you know, it's hard when you get one-shotted across the map and you're like, okay, well. And you spend 20 minutes, like, gearing up. You know, you're like, oh, I'm going to use these bullets and stuff. And, like, use this armor and this helmet, and then you just get one-shotted. That's life, though. You know? Hey,
I did everything right, and I go to this party, and they said it was not laced with anything. I took it, and then you know I'm in fucking prison after doing X, Y, and Z.
All right, hey,
that's an analogy I just got from you when you said that about you're gonna get all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been laced or anything.
I have. Well, I think one time I have, but I'll never do it again. Okay. What do you think needs to change in the gaming industry? Because like you said, like it's really tough right now, obviously with the baby, but like I feel that maybe 3 years ago, it was a different story. Like gaming industry was like amazing. It was like, oh man, I can't wait for this game to come out. Now it's like, I don't know what game's coming out that I'm excited for. It's like, I don't know.
I think honestly, I think COVID is a big fault for a lot of this. Like same with movies, like all the movies now suck because there's like that, you know, 3-year period where people weren't really working that hard. Probably the same with the games industry, and people were just kind of phoning it in at home, working on their laptop. They're like, I just want to hang out, make some sourdough, whatever. That's what people were doing. And I think that really, you know, people got kicked out of the loop, and then it's been a lot more profit driven recently, obviously, with a lot of the loot boxes, you know, cosmetics. It's more about like, oh, what cosmetics will people pay for instead of like, what cool content can we make? I have hope for the newest Battlefield, maybe, like that they're gonna hopefully listen to the fans and just give us what we had like 10 years ago, but just like polish it up a little bit. You know, new fresh coat of paint over the same game from 10 years ago. That's all we want. And then stop trying to innovate. Stop trying to, you know, to an extent. Keep refining, keep polishing, and then, you know, all these games are kind of funneling into making the same experience because they're like, oh, you know, Fortnite had this, Fortnite had skins, and then now it all looks like one, you know, big blob of just like neon colors, and it's like, all right, well, that's not what everybody wants from every single game, but, you know, the 1% of people that spends all this money on the cosmetics will just do it for whatever game, I guess. So it's hard to like... It's hard to discourage that when they're making the profit from it. But yeah, I don't know. Somebody smarter than me has to figure that out.
Yeah. Did you ever, now it seems like you played a lot more games that are multiplayer online, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever found it harder to go back to playing a single player game? Like a game, you know, where it's like, oh, you start from A and the goal is to get to Z, right? There's a storyline. It's basically mapped to like God of War, right? You can do a little, you know, side quest, but it's pretty much A to Z. Do you find it harder going back to playing games like that? Or you're like, I need that endorphin release. I need to have that interaction killing somebody and fucking their day up.
No, I think it's like a good mix for sure. Like sometimes I do like doing the multiplayer stuff, and other times like I'll be like, okay, I don't really want to interact with anybody. Let's just, play something single player, have a good time just by myself. I'm kind of more on the solitary end of things anyways. Like, yeah, just try to unwind and not have to worry about, coordinating anything. Just have fun, enjoy, and like, yeah, I don't know. I like the mix of both, but that's just me.
Gotcha. Okay. Speaking of side quests, recently I saw you doing an 80XC grappling match with my boy Aljo.
Yeah.
How did that come about, that opportunity? Because typically I tell everybody this is the best time to be a fight fan. The reason why is because back in the day, you look at maybe the early 2000, maybe 2012 to 2017, 2018. Nobody was doing side quests. If you're a UFC fighter or a mixed martial artist, you were just doing MMA. For you to go off and venture, do a grappling match, UFC Fight Pass, what is it called? The UFC Invitational, what they got going on now, or 80XC, or even Karate Combat. You couldn't do that. But now you're able to do that. Talk to me about your experience to go to Abu Dhabi to be able to compete in just pure grappling, which is your base.
Yeah, so I got the call. I don't remember who Aljo was he might have been supposed to go with somebody else initially, but I got the call from, essentially, this is the dude. He hooked me up with OnlyFans. Oren, he's like a manager. I think he manages Aljo for some of the stuff. Anyways, he was like, hey, you want to grapple Aljo in Abu Dhabi here in January? I think I'd fought in like November, December. And I was like, I just saw Aljo, Abu Dhabi, and I was like, yep, let's do it. Whatever it takes, 100%. And I was like, who gets the experience to go to Abu Dhabi and then get to grapple, a champ at the time or former champ? I don't remember.
I think he was a former champ
at the time,
but he was a former world champion. So
one of the highest level bantamweights in the world. And yeah, I mean, it was cool. I got to, fly to Abu Dhabi, do that 20-hour flight. That was awful. And then we were main event too, like main event. We were the very last guys grappling the night. And yeah, it's cool to, go out there. And honestly, we had like a little mini test cut. Like I didn't have to cut a ton of weight, but a little bit. Like I had to go out there, get in the sauna for like an hour or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it was cool to, just experience another culture. And that's kind of the benefit of doing these things where it's like get into work and then also experience, another country. Yeah, it was a great time. We went to Ferrari World.
Oh, shit.
What else did we do? I mean, we wanted to go, like, in the dunes and stuff after. I think it was the Sunday after the matches. They were like, hey, we're taking everybody to the sand dunes. We're going to ride camels and stuff. But my wife couldn't go because she was, like, pretty pregnant at the time. And they're like, either you got to leave her or you just can't go. And I was like, all right, I'll feel like a dick if I just leave her. Me and Jeff.
What you gonna decide, honey?
Yeah, she was like, you can go if you want. I was like, I'd feel like a dick if me and Jeff just left you in a foreign country for the entire day. To go ride camels and stuff. And yeah, but no, it was cool. It was cool getting to grapple Aljo. I mean, I felt like he was very much like an MMA grappler, which I don't know. I want guys that are trying to submit me, and I felt like I wasn't getting as much of that. He like popped something in my wrist too, which is kind of weird. There's like a little bone here that like moves around now.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna send him the bill for that eventually.
There you go.
Figure out what it is, but no, it was cool. It was cool to get to experience that. And again, it's like these opportunities that just come up that weren't available before.
Yep.
And yeah, it's a hell of a time. I mean, he's a solid guy.
It's just something that you don't back in the day you didn't get to see, right? And there's a lot of athletes who do a lot of the side quests, right? Like this has nothing to do helping you get towards, a UFC championship, right? It's like, it's an opportunity. I'm going to make, probably 10, 20 G's, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Experience Abu Dhabi and be able to keep on just building your brand as a whole. And when I see athletes doing that, I think it's good. Do you plan on doing more of that during your career if the opportunity presents itself, or you all just focus all in on mixed martial arts right now?
Yeah.
I mean, not that you weren't focused on mixed martial arts, but sometimes when you veer off, you play an Elden Ring, when you veer off to go kill fucking Melina, that's trying to get you closer to, beating, the fucking salamander boss, right? So
yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where the hardest part with UFC is you're fighting on their schedule for the most part.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, hey, I want to fight right now. They might be like, oh, we don't have anybody for you. How about this date? So I think it's staying in that competitive mindset is good regardless of what sport you end up doing. Like if I did a, competitive, table tennis tournament, like that'd still keep me in the mindset of like being competitive instead of like sometimes in the gym between fights, you're like, oh, we're going to be kind of lazy and just kind of have fun a little more. But, having something that you're preparing for and like maybe getting the weight down, stuff like that, I feel like it's important for me. Just because like 6 months between fights is a long time. By the time I get to the next fight, I'm usually like, do I remember how to do this? Like, do I remember how to step in there and compete?
Yep.
And like, so I think, I'd love to keep doing these grappling things on the side. With the caveat of doing it against other UFC guys. Like, I don't want to just grapple people that are doing jiu-jitsu 100% of the time. Like,
because that's all they fucking do.
Yeah, so I got to split my time. Like a third of my time's jiu-jitsu, and then, a third's wrestling, and a third's striking.
Yep.
So I want somebody that's also kind of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the name value, too. Like, I got to grapple Moicano. I got to grapple Clay Guida. I got to grapple Aljo. Like, these matchups that make sense.
Yep.
Maybe something that wouldn't happen in UFC, like if I got to grapple, like, a Bryce Mitchell, somebody like that. It'd be stuff like that the fans might want to see, but it might not happen in UFC.
Yep.
So I think it'd be cool to, get to experience some of those and show that for the fans. And then, just stay in that competitive mindset.
Gotcha. How's your body doing right now? You've been training since you're 8 years old, doing, grappling, mixed martial arts. How does your body feel being 25 now, right?
Yeah.
Because I would say that's a lot of, not a wear and tear on your body, but you've been in the game a lot longer.
Yeah. I think definitely wear and tear, like more in the fights. I think you just get into weird positions. Honestly, I feel like I'll have something that's like aching or bugging me, and then one day I'll just notice it's kind of gone after, like a month or whatever.
You still got that young testosterone, young boy.
Yeah, a little bit. You can see with the, Yeah, I don't know. I feel like lifting weights has really helped me, at least doing a lot more lower body stuff, like doing deadlifts, doing squats, like with a little more weight. I mean, not crazy weight, but really just like working on the form, like working with a trainer and like making sure I'm doing it right. I feel like that's strengthened up like my back, getting the glutes and all that. So I feel like I have less back pain than I used to, honestly, at least from just strictly competing jiu-jitsu, doing the MMA stuff now. So, I feel better than I did, honestly.
How much weight do you cut? Like, how big are, like, you're what, 5'10", 5'11", 6'2"? What are you at?
Hey, I'll tell people 6'2".
6'2"?
Probably closer to 6 foot, 6'1".
Okay, when you're 5'3", it's kind of hard to gauge how tall people are. Oh, you get that, huh?
Yeah, I can understand,
So how much weight do you cut?
Well, I've cut from like 195.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
195 to 155?
Yeah.
Dude, you're gonna be finding fucking probably 170, dog. You're 25. You give yourself like 4 more years of lifting. You're gonna be probably fighting at 170.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of discipline. That's kind of where I'm at right now. It's just in the diet.
195.
Yeah, it's just it's hard. The puberty keeps coming along, keeps kicking in, and I mean I've grappled guys like Chiesa at welterweight, and I'm like, he's not, especially when he's like about to fight. Like when he's out of camp, he's a little bigger than me, but when he's closer to fights, like I was helping him out for the Kevin Holland fight. So like a couple weeks out, he's already also dieted down. I'm like, oh, we're about the same size now, honestly.
But he fights at 155 though.
He's a 70 now.
He's at 170 now.
Yeah. Honestly, the biggest thing that's keeping me from going up to 70 is the height difference. Like that's where you get the Kevin Hollands, Ian Garys, the MVPs, these guys that are 6'3", 6'4", versus lightweight. I'm on the taller end.
Yeah.
Like there's a handful of guys that are over 6 foot.
Yep.
So that's kind of the thing, is that like most of my career I've been able to be the taller end of the spectrum, so I don't necessarily want to be the short guy.
Yeah.
But I mean we'll do what we have to do for my body to like keep the career going as long as we can. And I'm sure I'll be at welterweight someday, but
yeah, I would say you will be, because being 25, and I mean, what do you walk around right now?
Probably around the same, honestly.
195?
It depends.
How much you weigh this morning?
I don't know. I didn't check this morning.
How much you weigh yesterday?
I was closer to like 190.
Oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
40-pound cut.
Yeah.
And it ain't like you got fat on you. You're pretty,
Hey, I'll take
you're
a little bit.
You're lean, and
yeah.
Damn, 190.
It's just, yeah, it's a weird thing. I think honestly, it just shows how adaptable the human body is. Like, I feel like after fights, I get more into the weights, less into like, I'm not running, I'm not doing the like, I do a lot of bike workout stuff.
But you're getting more dense. You're growing into your body.
Yeah. So I think though, when I switch back into camp of doing the more cardio focused stuff, that's when I slim down a little bit.
Probably at 170.
Yeah, if I can go into fight week at 170, I'm happy. That was easy. 75 is my goal.
That's still fucking a lot of weight. That's still what, 20, like 15 pounds, right? Yeah, 15 pounds. But you're at 175. That's still 20 pounds.
Yeah, 75 is my goal fight week. But closer to 70 is always easier. I was probably 179 fight night for the clay fight.
Oh my God.
And that's just, that's pretty standard, honestly, now, lightweight.
So what do you think about, one championship, they have, the hydration clause, right? So you wouldn't be able to make 155. You'd be fighting 170, essentially, which would mean to everybody else would be fighting 172. So it doesn't really make a difference. But do you enjoy cutting the weight? Do you enjoy I just feel like it's part of American culture, like American combat culture.
I blame the wrestlers 100%. It's all the wrestlers' fault. Because they're used to cutting weight on same day and then wrestling this, like a couple hours later. And then you tell them, hey, you got 24 hours. Get as big as you want. And then they're like, oh, I'm going to double. I'm going to cut as, double what I was for wrestling for MMA. So I blame them 100%. But I think there's always ways around everything. Like, I mean, I haven't seen how closely they watch your pee, but, I from guys that I've heard that have competed for one, I've heard that people still cut a decent amount. I mean, I could take or leave the weight cutting, obviously, but I'd rather not. I'd rather just fight, my natural weight. But everybody else is doing it, so we just got caught up in the cycle, and it does make you more appreciative when you do get to eat, and getting to enjoy some pizza or some dessert, something like that, and I think it's nice to have a break from just eating whatever you want all the time. Having to be disciplined a little bit and like toughen yourself up a little mentally before you have to do a cage fight. But
do you still spar, Jeff Hoagland? Like who do you train with, right? Because when I was training at AMC, we had some good athletes there, but a lot of them, they weren't on, like there's probably two professionals, Karos Fedor and James Yang. But then other than that, it was everybody else kind of like they were hobbyists. They really enjoyed mixed martial arts. For you, who's your training partners up there at the gym?
Yeah, so we honestly, we have a really small team. We have, 6-8 guys. But there's no fat. Like it's everybody on the team wants to fight. Everybody on the team's, kind of chasing the same goal. They all want to get to UFC. We have some amateur guys that are coming up. This kid Coffee, he'll probably be out in Miami. He's still amateur, but he was, I think he got like second at like Fargo for wrestling in high school, and just, he's a little guy. He'll probably be a 25er. My guy Lando, he's probably 5-1 as a pro. Same thing. Eli, he's a heavyweight though.
You can do it. You're right in between there, man. 190 fighting, 245.
He's a gentle giant for the most part. But my guy Cam, who just went pro, like we have like a smaller stable of guys, but everybody is like very focused, very consistent. My guy Marco, that's been there forever. He's probably been there for 6, 7, 8 years now. And it's just, I mean, it's getting a good group of guys, and that's kind of been my goal. Like early in my career, it was literally just me and one other guy. And then when I got signed to UFC, I think he got a little pissy about it, and he was a welterweight.
Who?
I don't throw him out. He doesn't really train anymore. He started beating the shit out of me when I was like 18, and he was like, 25.
Fuck him.
At welterweight.
Yeah.
Oh, I got him back a little bit.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I got him back like a couple years ago.
Gotcha.
But no, it's one of those things where like I had one guy to train with, and then he didn't want to train with me, and it's like, okay, well, what the fuck do I do now?
Yeah.
But now it's been really like, at least for me, trying to have a big focus on like building a team, like feeling like building that rapport and being like, hey, like we're in the trenches together. Like I corner all their fights. Win or lose, it's, I'm right next to them. Same thing for my fights. And I feel like that's been a big thing, is just building like a team mentality. Even just having like a smaller number of guys. And we'll go cross train at other gyms, and we'll go spar out there. That's been the biggest thing for me, at least. But yeah, just staying home base, like with the guys the guys you can trust, the guys that aren't gonna hurt you. You can still kind of turn it up with them, but
do you spar Jeff? Does Jeff still spar?
Not as much. It's been a couple years.
Yeah. I respect him. I was talking about the tournament. I was like, man, when are you gonna grapple? He goes, I don't put the fucking work in to be able to be. And I'm like, you know what? I respect that.
Yeah. No, he's just trying to keep the wheels from falling off physically right now. I mean, that's what a lifetime of mixed martial arts. I mean, he had a fight at 185. He was telling us the other day for MMA, and like, he shouldn't have been at 185.
Yeah, he's like 5'6".
Yeah, he's like 150 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, I give him 5'7".
5'7".
Yeah, I'll help him out. I'll help him out. Yeah, but he shouldn't have been at middleweight, and that's the thing. But that was the old school MMA. It's like, and you're fighting all these juiced up guys anyways, and especially on the local circuits. And I'm a lifetime of that. And then, training like they used to train back in the day, like not as smart. Just they used to train 6 days a week, and then on Sundays they would go run up Mount Peak, and then they'd go run up and run down this couple mile mountain, and then go back to the gym and spar.
Wow.
Like that's how people are getting hurt though.
Yeah. That's too much wear and tear on your body. And as you get older, it's like,
yeah.
Long days.
I try to do we're sparring twice a week. The rest of the time we're doing more technical stuff, But
nice.
Yeah.
I love it. Big fight coming up. You're taking on Jim Miller, a legend on the sport. I think he's got 100 fights in the UFC. Talk to me about this matchup. I like the matchup. I think it's good to, your progression as a martial artist inside the UFC in the rankings. You had a great last fight against Clay Guida, another guy who's been in the UFC for a very long time. Yeah. Talk to me about, this matchup between you and Jim Miller.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I feel like the fans are more confident in me than I am. That they always are anyways. They're always like, oh, you're just going to run through this guy. Like, you're going to murder him, whatever. But honestly, this is the toughest fight I've had so far. The people that are like, oh, you're just beating up old guys. Like, sure, Jim's on the older end of things and he has a lot of fights, but he's fought everybody. Yeah. And he's still doing the damn thing. Like, he's still had some great wins recently, and he's still beating up the young guys. So it's a really it's a big step up. And, I was really intrigued when UFC offered the matchup. I mean, he's left-handed, which is fun. I don't get to fight as many left-handed guys. I'm left-handed.
So southpaw versus southpaw.
Yeah, so it kind of canceled out instead of us both having the benefit. But yeah, he's fought everybody. I mean, the last two guys I think to sub him out were Charles Oliveira and Michael Chiesa. I like the matchup as far as, he's going to try and, get a finish, and so am I. And I feel like that leads to exciting fights, which the fans love, UFC loves. And I'm a bigger fan of that. Like, I want something high pace. I want a guy that's going to try to submit me. I want a guy that's going to try and knock me out, because I don't want to get knocked out or subbed, But, hey, it's one of those things where a guy that's thinking about offense, it's a lot easier to finish those guys than someone that's a lot more defensive and trying not to get finished. So yeah, I think it's a really exciting matchup. He's a little shorter, a little older, but he's left-handed. He's got some slick guillotines. Try not to get caught in one of those.
Well-rounded, a veteran of the game. He's fought the best of the best. Been around for a long time. And, anybody can get caught in mixed martial arts. And like you said, he doesn't prioritize defense or offense. I feel like he's in a good, sweet middle where he's going to try to, knock your head off. And when he does that, that gives you the opportunity to capitalize on his exposure, overexposing himself, right?
Exactly, yeah. I feel like it's much easier to get a finish against someone that's trying to think about, beating you up, than someone that's just purely focused on defense, grappling or on the feet. Like, it's the same thing. But yeah, I'm really excited by the matchup. And again, it's the toughest one I've had so far in my career, just because he's so well-rounded. Like, before that, I would say the Vyacheslav Borshov fight was my toughest on paper. I was terrified that fight. I was like, this guy's gonna kick the shit out of me. I was like, even if I win, I'm still gonna be limping home the next day. Yeah. And then went out there, made it look easy, caught him early, and the rest is history. But I mean, I'm definitely not looking past gym. I know it's a tough fight, and I'm doing all the things I can right now. Really pushing the pace with the cardio. I'm sleeping in an altitude tent. I do that in camp.
Why? Oh, you just do it in camp? Even though you're fighting at sea level, right? Because it's in Miami.
Yeah, but so essentially, altitude tent, mine, it just kind of like tapers the amount of oxygen, so it's less than what's in the air normally. So it's not pressurized or anything, but it'll give you the same oxygen you'd get at, right now, it's probably at 8,000 feet. Gonna work up to 10 by the end of the camp. But essentially what it does is it stimulates your body's growth of red blood cells. So same thing that EPO does.
Yeah.
Same thing that EPO does.
But you're doing it in a natural way.
Yeah, natural, legal. You know, how can you say, you shouldn't be doing that?
Yeah.
And yeah, I felt the difference. Like just being able to push the pace, and it helps, keep your blood more oxygenated, because again, you have more red blood cells that are able to transport it. And
you be having sex in this tent? Or you be taking it down when it's time to do the business?
So at first we had like a big tent that went over the entire bed, and then now it's like a little box that's over my head. So
really?
It's easier. We just put it in after the fact. But when it was a full tent, it was like camping.
It reminds me of a paper bag over your head. It's like, all right, I gotta have this on. I want to feel the experience of climaxing at 8,000 feet while at sea level.
Might pass out. I don't know. I haven't tried that yet.
You haven't?
Not with the tent on. We usually leave the doors open for that. When it's the big one.
I never realized that you can do that while sleeping. Because I know Rich Franklin, he's talked about like when he would train, when he had to fight at altitude, he would sleep inside a tent. And then when he would come out of the tent and train, he'll be at sea level.
Yeah.
But when you're sleeping, your blood's working on developing that extra red blood cells.
Yeah.
To get yourself ready. And you say you feel a difference. Even though when you're sleeping there, right when you come out of the tent, you wake up, your body's adjusting right back to sea level.
Yeah, so essentially it's like they say like the altitude masks, like the ones that people used to wear for training, like those are bullshit because you're only wearing it for an hour.
Exactly.
But if you're sleeping at altitude for 8 hours, like that's the thing that's going to make your body have to adapt and have to, because that's when it's focused on like strictly recovery. When you make it harder for your body to recover, you're making your blood oxygen level like go down. Then it's like, okay, we got to figure this out. We got to pump the numbers up. Yeah, so even though it's only 8 hours. I mean, that's still a third of your time.
Yep.
And yeah, I got it from Wonder Boy, actually. He was telling me he always does that in camp. And
do you do it outside of camp too, or you just do it only when you're in camp?
No, just in camp. Okay. The wife would probably kill me if I tried to do it year round. It sucks though. It sucks like, hey, all right, I got to go get the tent. It's like a little box. I got to, fuck the bed up. I got to put it on the bed, put my pillow in there, turn it on. It's loud. It's like a CPAP machine, but like kind of reverse.
Gotcha.
Instead of giving you more oxygen, it gives you less. And yeah, I've noticed a difference for sure. Like my first fight at 55, I think I had like the second or third most strikes thrown or landed in a lightweight fight, at least differential wise. And it was like, like 120 or
goddamn.
I was just throwing the whole time, fighting hard for 15 minutes. Scrambling the whole time, and I still felt good after the fact. So yeah, it's just keeping that up and trying to perform.
Wow, I love that. Let's talk about your last fight against Clay Guida. Before you fought Clay Guida, you spent some time with Dark Rigatoni, Mikey Musumeci. Tell me about it. Like when you grappled him, were you tell me about that experience of you grappling Mikey?
Yeah, so I was out working with Fight Pass for the MSG card back in November. And they're like, hey, Mikey's here. Like, if you want to get some grappling in with him, like, we'd love to film some content. And I was like, oh, for sure. Like, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
I've been a big Mikey fan, obviously. And I honestly, before the fact and after, I've always thought of him as, like, probably the best grappler in the world under, 185 pounds. You've got the Gordon Ryan question, these Craig Jones, like the big guys. But if you shrank him down to Mikey's size, I think it'd be easy for him.
Yeah.
Just his level of like understanding in jiu-jitsu is very interesting. Like it's cool. I don't usually get to feel like I'm a white belt when I'm grappling people. But then I did. I felt like everything I was doing was putting myself in a bad spot. And I think I swept him once or twice,
Okay,
but,
okay. You got
we
pro
rolled for
points
like
for
an
that?
hour. Yeah, hey. But no, it was awesome. He was very polite. Didn't fuck my knee up or anything. Like, didn't rip my arm off. It's awesome having a guy of that level that's willing to train and is a great training partner.
Yeah.
And he was showing me some stuff afterwards. A little Kimura trap that he does for the armbar.
And that's the one you hit with.
Yeah, I butchered it a little bit, but
Hey, did you get 50 G's for that?
yeah, I did.
There
yeah,
you go,
yeah.
right there.
Hey, we got 6 finishes in UFC and then 2 bonuses now. So hey, not too bad.
That's what's up.
Yeah, hey, it worked out, and yeah, I'd love to grapple with Mikey again. Let him beat me up. Hopefully, show me something before the Jim Miller fight.
There you go.
We'll see.
Here's a question. A couple more questions for you, man. I appreciate you giving us all this time. What did you do? I've been asking a lot of athletes, right? Usually more that are retired, but I don't get to talk to a lot of retired athletes, not just from mixed martial arts or NFL or whatever the sport is. What did you do with your very first check when you got it from fighting? Your very first check.
Very first check, honestly, it was probably 500 and 500. I think at the time I just turned 18. Honestly, I probably just threw it in the bank. You know, I not that long after fighting, I started, having to pay all the bills. So a lot of that money was going to bills. Yeah, I think honestly, I just threw it in the bank, and it probably ended up paying for the electric bill or something, over a couple months. Paying the rent. The rent was like $845. We got a good deal on the rent, but
$845. We got a good deal on the rent, but it was $845.
Yeah, so probably went to the rent, I would say.
Okay, and what did you do with your very last check that you got recently from fighting? Not like sponsorships, but the last time you punched somebody, you got done, and it said, I don't know what the fucking check's saying now. Does it say Zuffa on it still, or what does it say on? I don't know.
Yeah, they just wire it.
Okay, wire. So what was the last thing you bought with that check? What did you do with the last check?
I actually bought kind of a dork. I bought a ballistic helmet. I'm gonna get some night vision here pretty quick.
Oh, really?
I was like, well, I got the bonus. I'm going to buy some stupid stuff. Bought a pistol. Why not? It's fun. It's a good time. I like guns and stuff. I like LARPing with the homies.
Okay.
And night vision, why not? Walk around at night in your house,
I fucking love that.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time somebody on this the podcast said they bought NVGs with their last check.
Yeah.
When you say a LARP, are you talking about like, shield and swords, or are you talking about like airsoft and LARPing?
No, I mean, that's just what they call it when you're kind of like, you're a dork and you're wearing like the plate carrier and the helmet and stuff and trying to go shooting.
Okay.
I don't know. I just think it's a good time. Honestly, I like wearing the like plates and stuff. It's like a workout.
Yeah.
Like, oh, let's run around and shoot at stuff. It's like just another skill and like something to learn.
You're just trying to live Tarkov in real life. Like I got the 7.632, got the B, I've got the Ignoc ammo. I got all this ammo. I got the 993, the 991.
Yeah.
It's gonna be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's just, why not spend your money on dumb shit every once in a while, and that's the thing is I don't know, I like guns. I think they're cool, and that's my only justification. Hey, we're in a country where this state not as much, but we're able to waste our money on stupid stuff like that. And hey, it's the American way.
Yeah. What is your after fighting, obviously the goal is to become a world champion, but what is your goal outside of fighting, right? Like, do you have any goals of starting a show or anything like that, like other hobbies that will help pursue, but things you can do outside of fighting, like after you're done fighting? Obviously you're in the thick of things with fighting, but for me, I always think it's always good for an athlete to think about what they're going to do outside of mixed martial arts. Have you thought about that yet? Or are you just like, fuck that, I'm just grinding it till the wheels fall off?
I mean, a little bit for sure. My ultimate goal is definitely to have something that I can do that's not requiring me to like sacrifice my physical health to make money.
Yep.
Like, I'm not like, okay, I'm trading my brain health for this, $50,000 check as a bonus. But no, I've been really having a good time doing stuff with UFC Fight Pass, doing some more stuff on the broadcast end of things. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I would say my ultimate goal is definitely to not have to get a regular job ever. I'd like to stay in this, vein of things on the sports side of it. Obviously, I think someday I'd like to, be able to give back to the next generation, have a gym and be able to, just see where the sport progresses from there. And yeah, I mean, we'll see. Maybe we'll start doing some real estate stuff. The house we just bought, we're not gonna sell. We're gonna keep it. And then, whenever we move up to a bigger house, we're gonna try and rent that one out.
Nice.
Just try and get in the real estate side of things, I guess. Yeah.
I love it. Here's a question. How you been with your wife for how long now? Like, cause she's your girlfriend at the very beginning, right?
Yeah, so I had one pro fight, so it's been 7.5 years.
Talk to me about the dynamic of you going, hey, we're making $2,500. We're at IKEA, and now you're making great money.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the dynamic of somebody being there to support you, right? Because I feel a lot of athletes in any sport, either they're with somebody or not. I mean, I just looked up on Instagram today that Israel Adesanya's ex-girlfriend owes him $500,000 because she tried to take his ass to court and try to get some of that money. So I think it's very hard for athletes in any sport to find that special one that's been there since day one supporting you. Talk to me about the dynamic of you guys growing together as you navigate this, career in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, it's one of those things too where this sport's so volatile and there's no stability in it really. So it's nice to have stability at home on that side of things. And yeah, when we started out, she moved in with me as soon as she turned 18, and we were splitting the bills. She was working extra shifts to make sure the rent was paid. And she was like, okay, pursue the fighting stuff. Let's see how it goes. And yeah, because I was already pro by the time we started dating. Yeah, it's not a lot of money, but we made it by. My Contender fight, I think we had $34 in the bank account.
Damn.
While I was fighting. In Vegas, I was like, guys, I can't get these Ubers anymore. Somebody's got to get it. I'll get you back, but... and then winning Contender, it was 5-5. That was the most money I'd seen in my life, was $10,000. And yeah, it's nice to have someone that's been with you from the beginning, and then it's really worthwhile and really fulfilling to be able to be in this spot now where we have our baby and she's able to not work. She's able to just spend the time at home, and I'm able to be home a lot, so it's a lot of time with the kid, and I feel like that. It's, it just shows that I'm doing the right thing, and it's worthwhile. And, I picked the right one, or, she's, dealt with me long enough that, she's willing to stick around. So,
yeah. When was your first, oh shit money? Like we've had another guy on, I could just say what my first oh shit part was oh shit, I gotta do this with it. Oh, I gotta do this with it. I gotta pay that much in fucking taxes.
Yeah.
What was your first oh shit moment? And you're like, fuck, you just said, fuck, I got $34 in the account. I'm in Vegas. I can get these Ubers. You get 5 and 5. There's 10 G's. You're like, oh shit, we got 10 G's, babe. We going back to IKEA, or can I buy a new computer? Let me buy this fucking AR with a can on it.
There you go.
What was your big first oh shit moment? This is a lot of fucking money. What are we gonna do?
Honestly, definitely taxes. Because I don't think a lot of people think about it, but UFC, they just cut you a check. You're 1099, they're like, we don't take the taxes out. You have to, measure it out yourself. So it's sending those checks to the IRS. They're like, here's $25,000. For what? I don't know. Here you go. So you don't put me in jail. It doesn't feel like they earned 25 grand out of my fight checks at the time.
Yeah.
When I have to write the check and be like, here you go, let me mail it to the IRS, put the little stamp on there.
Yep.
I think one of the first years after, being in UFC and stuff, we owed 25 grand because I hadn't paid any of it. And I was at the time, it's what? $25,000? What?
Yeah.
We'd been kind of I'd kept it in the account, just trying to it's just so vague. It was what are we going to do when the tax time comes? Mm-hmm. And actually I got to work on my taxes this week. It's just, the taxes are the worst part. I got to say. I think I sent him 45 after the last fight.
Goddamn!
Because I was
just to make sure that you.
I was we got the bonus.
Yeah.
And but I don't think I got the bonus till January. But, but still, I was
yeah, that's smart. No, dude.
It's all a guessing game.
Dude, there's so many athletes, not just in mixed martial arts, but basketball, football, baseball, that don't pay their taxes, right? Yeah. And I think that's a big money moment. Guys go, oh man, I made $1 million. Guess what? 37% of that's fucking gone. So 270,000 is going to Uncle Sam, even though he wasn't in your corner, he wasn't doing anything. That shit goes to them. And a lot of people and a lot of fans don't realize that either. It's you have to, cover your own taxes. And if you don't do it, Uncle Sam going to come and collect one of these days in your life.
Yeah. People don't really think about how much money goes out right out of the gate.
Yep.
Thankfully, Jeff's my manager, so I don't have to pay a management team on top of that. Mm-hmm. But it's 20, 30% send to the IRS. Another 10% goes to my coach. A lot of people send, 10, 15% to their manager. So it's like almost half of your money is gone right off the top.
Yep.
But hey, could be worse. I could be working a 9 to 5 and yeah, hey, no complaints really at the end of the day. Just little pet peeves, I guess.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Chase, I appreciate you coming down, stopping by at the local, Wicked Pie here in Puyallup. This is your opportunity to let people know how they can support you, how they can follow you, what they can look forward to. The floor is yours, brother.
Yeah, I don't know. Just watch UFC 314. I'll be in Miami. Come say what's up if you're down there. And yeah, I mean, if you're through Edom Claw and you want to train, come swing through. Combat Sport and Fitness. I'm there, 6 days a week. And
are you teaching classes there now?
Not as much. I'm more just focused on the MMA side of things. I used to help teach the kids class, but now it's just MMA, and I do jiu-jitsu after, do the gi classes. But I'll cover stuff. But Jeff said main priority
is fighting,
and then after coach, because he had to juggle, owning a gym and trying to get ready for his own fights. He's like, you don't want to do that. So just focus on that now. But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for having me. Great talking.
What about your Instagram? I think it's Chase Hooper. 155?
Close enough.
Chase Hooper 155.
You'll find me. I'm on there.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys enjoyed this episode of the MightyCast, please leave a like, subscribe. Also, hit the bell to know when we go live. I am your host, Demetrious Johnson. This is our guest, Chase Hooper. Make sure you check out his fight as he takes on Jim Miller in UFC Miami at UFC 314. Jim. The fucking Jim. Chase, I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the MightyCast, and we just had Chase Hooper on the MightyCast, and this part of the MightyCast is called the Mighty Recap, and we recap everything that we just talked about with our guest. And I would say the most fascinating thing that I learned from Chase Hooper is he's been with the same coach since the very beginning, which is Jeff Hoagland. The first time I met Jeff Hoagland, I met him at Vision Quest. I sparred him one time, and at the time, I was still an amateur. Damn, man, almost broke my arm. I think that's probably the first time I felt that burning sensation in my arm when he almost broke it in an arm bar. Luckily, I tapped super fast. And I'll never forget when I was sparring him, he was like, you ain't gonna break me. I was a little man by then. I was a child. But to see that he's still with the exact same coach in the same area, which is in Enumclaw, which is Pacific Northwest in Washington State, it's inspiring because you don't see a lot of guys, go through that. Like, he was undefeated as an amateur, beat one of my teammates, Drew Brokenshire, and on a 2-hour notice, and him, making $2,500 guarantee, be able to go to IKEA and ball out. And just to hear the story of the infancy stage of going through a mixed martial arts career, because MMA career is very, very hard because you don't make a lot of money when you're doing it. And even when you're the best in the world, he had $34 in his account as a professional athlete, and he could barely cover the Uber rides. And the fact that now he's been very successful, and he got in the UFC at a very, very young age. Right? Like, I didn't get into UFC till I was like maybe 23, 24. So I was already kind of mature in my career and as an adult, with him being in the UFC, I believe 18, 19 years old, he said. And a cool thing that he said that I didn't know about was the development program. The only other time I've ever heard about the development program is with Brandon Moreno. He said he was part of a development program when he was in Mexico, that the UFC was trying to develop the talent in Mexico, which makes sense. And I think it's a good thing that they had this development program. They don't have it anymore, but I think it's a good thing because you get these fighters and they're good, but they're just not good enough for that next level in the UFC. But you give them, good money. He was making great money fighting at the local shows at CFCs or Cage Free or Titan. And then he gets a little more experience, and then he gets that opportunity to have that next leap into the UFC. That way he gets that experience before he gets in the big show. I think it's really cool, and I would like to see them bring that back, because there's a couple organizations that kind of do it. I know One Championship did it, Friday Night Fights, where those guys, they fight at Lupini Stadium, and then eventually they get the opportunity to fight for a contract at One Championship. But I don't think they're making, UFC money fighting those local scenes. I mean, him making 10-10, and then going after that making 12-12, and then so forth and so forth. He was making more money, and the regional area than I was when I was actually in the UFC. My first paycheck in the UFC was 5-5, and then it went, 5-5. I think it went 6-6, and then 7-7. So it's kind of cool to see that he was part of that development program. And when you look at Dana White's Contender Series, Dana White Contender Series has produced champions. You look at Sugar Sean O'Malley. I can't think of any other off the top of my head, but I think he's the biggest one. But if you look at, what the Ultimate Fighter's been able to do, John Dotson, it's been able to produce some great talent. TJ Dillashaw. Somebody else who's become a world champion. Cody No Love was in the Ultimate Fighter as well. I think he was. I'm not sure. My brain's all over the place with who's done what and who's been able to accomplish what. But I think the coolest thing is hearing about the development program that he was a part of. Now, when you look at his fight against Jim Miller, it's an interesting fight because Jim Miller, he's been in the UFC for a very, very long time. One of the guys who probably has 50 to 60 fights, just like Donald Cerrone. Multiple fight night bonuses, knockouts, submissions, decisions. I mean, the gentleman has done everything inside the UFC besides become a world champion. But I think this will probably be his last fight or maybe 2 more fights. I think he wants to reach a certain number. And I'm excited for him to take on Chase Hooper, who I believe Chase Hooper is growing as a martial artist at the big stage because he still is relatively young, being 25 years old, gone through everything he's gone through in his career, from fighting the local scene here in the Pacific Northwest in Puyallup, and then be able to make his way to Dana White's Contender Series, and then now, doing ADXC against Aljamain Sterling, and then now get an opportunity to fight in Miami at UFC 314. And I think all in all, talking to Chase, I think he's a great kid, very, very talented. And the interesting thing is that we've never trained together, even though we live in the same city. I think our paths never crossed. Now I'm on my jiu-jitsu journey, and the guy's fucking massive. Him talking about he walks on 195, kind of 155. Are you fucking kidding me? He's an absolute massive. He's like 6 foot, and he's still growing, right? I think he's going to be, I can see him ending up at 170. I don't think he's going to get any taller, but I do believe he's probably going to get, more muscle, more thicker. And seems like he's with a great team. Same with the same team, Jeff Hoagland, a guy who used to fight in the UFC as well. A local legend here in Pacific Northwest. And I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do with his career. And it was fun chopping it up with him when it comes to the gaming side of things, because when you talk about gaming, you know what? The game industry is fucking dead right now. There's no games out right now that get me, excited. It's almost like an empty shell, something that I used to truly enjoy in the early days of my life. And now I feel like there's nothing out there that's really piquing my interest. But to hear that he vibes out, he played a lot of hours of Elden Ring, and he doesn't even know what the fuck's going on in Elden Ring unless he reads a book, which I think that's kind of, counterintuitive. Why play a game for 95 hours and next thing you know, you have no idea what the fuck you just played? So boys, if you guys enjoyed this episode of the Mighty Recap and the MightyCast, please leave a like, subscribe, also leave a comment. And in the comment section, let me know what you guys thought was the best part of the episode. Was it him talking about the development program that the UFC had? And that's one of the reasons I love talking to these athletes, because everybody's journey to the big show is totally different. Everybody's journey of how they spend their money, what they do when they get their first big paycheck, what they do when they get their first bonus, or what they do when they pay taxes. $45,000 went out out of the pot once he won his last fight with that bonus. I love to, hear and share these athlete stories, because those are some of the stories I had too when I had my first big money moment. My big money moment is, what do I do with all this money we just made? Because last thing we want is the IRS coming back and claiming the house, and we're going to end up like fucking Happy Gilmore, having Shooter McGavin, trying to purchase the house and piss on the ashes. So boys, I am your host, Demetrious Johnson. The co-host is not here, but he's going to be in the lab chopping this up real good. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the MightyCast. We will see you guys at the next episode of the MightyCast. Woo! All right, everybody can party. Woo!